Part 1. The Scientific Discovery. Oceanographers and marine scientists have discovered that when two different seas meet, they often do not mix immediately or freely. Instead, a kind of barrier or front exists between them. This phenomenon occurs due to differences in the density, temperature, and salinity, saltiness, of the two water masses. These differences create a surface tension that acts as a barrier, preventing the waters from mixing for a certain distance and depth. A famous example: the meeting of the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea at the Strait of Gibraltar is a classic case. The Atlantic water is less dense and saline than the Mediterranean water, which is warmer and saltier. As they meet, a distinct boundary can be observed, and it takes a considerable distance for them to fully mix. Estuaries. A more common example is where a freshwater river flows into a salty ocean. An estuary, a pronounced gradient, called a halocline, exists where the fresh water and salt water meet but resist complete mixing due to their different densities. This creates a unique ecosystem with distinct layers. In short, the scientific understanding of these aquatic fronts and barriers, governed by the laws of physical oceanography, was developed in the 19th and 20th centuries. Part 2. What the Quran said about it. Years ago, this very specific natural phenomenon is described with remarkable accuracy in the Quran in two places. Surah Ar-Rahman, the Beneficent, chapter 55, verses 19-20, He released the two seas, meeting side by side. Between them is a barrier, so neither of them transgresses. Original Arabic. Maraja al-Bahraini yaltaqiyani, bainahuma barzakhun la yabghiyan. Surah Al-Furqan, the Criterion, chapter 25, verse 53. And it is He who has released simultaneously the two seas, one fresh and sweet and one salty and bitter. And He placed between them a barrier and prohibiting partition. Original Arabic. Wa huwa alladhi maraja al-bahraini, hatha athbun furatun, wa hatha milhun ojajun wa ja'ala bainahuma barzakhan wa hijran majuran. The key Arabic term used is Barzakh, Barzakh. This word signifies a barrier, partition, or isthmus that simultaneously separates two things and also joins them. It is not a solid wall, but a dynamic zone of separation. With the connection, the Quranic description aligns perfectly with the modern scientific observation. Two adjacent seas. The verse mentions two distinct bodies of water that meet. They are side by side but maintain their distinct properties. A barrier, Barzakh. The text explicitly states there is a Barzakh between them that prevents one from overwhelming the other. This corresponds precisely to the oceanographic front created by differences in salinity and density. Fresh and salt water. The verse in Surah Al-Furqan specifically highlights the meeting of fresh and salt water, which is the most common and observable example of this phenomenon. Estuaries. Conclusion. For over 1,400 years, Islamic scholars have explained these verses, marveling at the fact that sweet and salty waters can flow side by side without the sweet water immediately becoming salty. They attributed this to God's divine power and design. The detailed scientific explanation for why this happens, involving density, salinity, and fluid dynamics, was unknown at the time but was perfectly described by the concept of a Barzakh. This is yet another example where a precise natural observation, later confirmed by science, was presented in the Quran long before the scientific discipline to explain it even existed.